Have you ever wondered if substances could control our emotions and actions? Imagine a world where a simple injection could make you fall in love, laugh uncontrollably, or feel intense fear just by pushing a button. In Spiderhead 2022, a group of prisoners volunteers for experiments in exchange for reduced sentences. But the horrors they endure are far worse than they could have ever imagined. Let's dive into this chilling story and uncover the secrets of this high-tech prison. Spiderhead takes place in a modern, isolated facility on a remote island. Unlike typical prisons, there are no cells or bars, just freedom within the compound. But there's a catch. Each inmate wears a MobiPack, a device that administers experimental drugs directly into their system. Controlled remotely by Dr. Abnesti, the drugs alter their thoughts, emotions, and behaviors in unimaginable ways. Ryan, one of the inmates, is the first test subject we meet. Dr. Abnesti gives him a drug called G46, which induces uncontrollable laughter. Even the dullest comments send Ryan into fits of hysteria, making it impossible for him to stop, no matter how unfunny it is. Abnesti and his assistant, Verlaine, monitor the effects before sending Ryan back to his routine. Meanwhile, every morning, Abnesti arrives in his private plane, a reminder of how isolated and inescapable the prison truly is. At the heart of the story is Jeff, an inmate who shares an oddly friendly relationship with Abnesti. Unlike most prisoners, Jeff volunteers for experiments, earning small privileges like cooking his meals and walking freely through the halls. One morning, Abnesti injects him with N, a drug designed to enhance perception. Jeff is mesmerized by what he thinks is a beautiful landscape, when it's actually just a polluted industrial site. The drug's power is undeniable. Satisfied, Abnesti dismisses Jeff, who returns to his quarters, where Lizzie, another inmate and Jeff's love interest, is waiting. She prepares dinner and casually asks about his latest experiment, unaware of the unsettling truth behind it. The next day, Abnesti and Verlaine conduct another experiment. This time they inject Ryan and Heather, two inmates who don't know each other, with N40. Almost immediately, they become overwhelmed with attraction, behaving as if they've been in love for years. They're aware they're being watched but can't resist the drug's effects. When the drug wears off, the intense connection vanishes, leaving them with nothing but confusion. Later that night, Jeff and Lizzie prepare dinner for the other inmates. Jeff notices Heather sitting alone, visibly shaken by the experiment. As he looks at her, he realizes just how deeply these drugs are messing with people's emotions. The next day, Jeff becomes the next test subject in an even more disturbing experiment. Abnesti pairs him with Sarah, an older woman Jeff isn't attracted to. But once injected, Jeff's feelings shift instantly, consumed by an overwhelming desire. The drug's power to manipulate emotions is terrifyingly real. What other twisted experiments are planned, and how much longer can Jeff ignore the truth? Stay tuned as we unravel the shocking story behind Spiderhead. In this eerie world, Jeff's MobiPack needs a refill. As Verlaine assists, they chat, and Jeff mentions his growing desire to transfer to a different facility. To his surprise, Verlaine agrees to help, showing support in a place where trust is scarce. Later, Jeff is asked to observe an experiment from Dr. Abnesti's office. This time, Heather and Sarah are the test subjects. Abnesti hands Jeff a phone, giving him control over the experiment. He casually shows Jeff how to administer Darkenflox, a drug that induces fear. But when the time comes to push the button, Jeff hesitates. He feels no personal connection to Heather or Sarah, and the idea of manipulating their emotions for fun doesn't sit right with him. Sensing his hesitation, Abnesti cancels the test. Instead, he suggests Jeff try administering N40, the love-inducing drug. Abnesti insists it could change the world, but Jeff is skeptical. As they talk, Jeff notices a stack of Abnesti's notes, but stays quiet, knowing it's better to keep a low profile for now. Later, Lizzie brings snacks to Jeff, and they chat, offering a brief moment of connection in an otherwise cold environment. Encouraged, Jeff calls his wife to talk about the accident that led him to Spiderhead. It's a tough conversation, but it lightens his guilt. Later, he visits Lizzie's room, feeling a need to comfort her as the emotional strain of their strange lives grows harder to ignore. In the next experiment, Jeff meets Rogan, a new inmate, but there's a twist. No drugs are administered. Instead, they just talk. Afterward, Jeff is left confused and suspicious. When he confronts Abnesti, he learns that Heather has been making the same choices Jeff made in past experiments. Heather confirms this, but Abnesti quickly cuts the conversation short. At one point, Heather even tries to cover her mouth with a sock to avoid speaking, but Abnesti intervenes, sending her away without explanation. Abnesti insists that he's not exploiting the inmates. He reminds Jeff that the orders come from higher-ups, implying that Jeff should be grateful for his special privileges. Abnesti assures Jeff everything is based on mutual respect project and convinces him to keep participating. Reluctantly, Jeff agrees, but his doubts only grow. Before the weekend, Abnesti says goodbye to Verlaine, instructing him to be patient, as the Darkenflox test is coming soon. After Verlaine leaves, Abnesti indulges himself, fully aware that things are spiraling out of control. Meanwhile, Jeff opens up to Lizzie about how the drugs are affecting him. He admits he's been avoiding the kitchen work, not because he doesn't want to help, but because it's getting harder to trust anyone, especially with the drugs messing with people's minds. Lizzie's presence, however, keeps him grounded and reminds him there's still humanity in Spiderhead. Later, Abnesti is seen sparring with Verlaine in a boxing ring, mocking him for being small-minded as they fight. It's clear Abnesti craves power beyond the experiments. He orders Verlaine to refill his substance supply, but Verlaine, starting to question things, warns Abnesti about the dangers of becoming dependent on the drugs. Abnesti brushes off the warning, focused only on advancing his research. As more experiments unfold, Jeff begins to realize some inmates have died during the trials. One night, he sneaks into Abnesti's office and makes a shocking discovery. Abnesti wears a Moby pack himself. Caught off guard, Jeff watches as Abnesti quickly hides the substances, but it's too late. The truth is out. In the next experiment, Abnesti announces Heather will receive Darkenflox, a decision made by the committee. It's clear Jeff is meant to oversee it, but this time, Jeff won't just sit back and let it happen. Something inside him snaps, and he refuses to let Heather be used as a pawn in this twisted game. Abnesti tries to manipulate Jeff, appealing to their supposed friendship and reminding him how much easier he's made Jeff's life in prison. He even brings up Jeff's birthdays, trying to make their relationship seem genuine. But Jeff isn't fooled anymore. He stands firm, telling Abnesti to speak directly to the committee if he wants the experiment to continue. Frustrated and unable to sway Jeff, Abnesti reluctantly agrees and leaves the office, leaving behind a lingering tension. Later, in the kitchen, Abnesti talks to Lizzie, casually mentioning past gifts he's given her, clearly trying to manipulate everyone around him. Back in his office, Abnesti lies to Jeff, claiming the committee has ordered the experiment to continue. He even threatens Jeff with a longer sentence if he refuses. Feeling cornered, Jeff gives in. The experiment begins, and it quickly spirals out of control. Heather is injected with Darkenflox, causing her to panic, scream, and thrash uncontrollably. Meanwhile, Jeff, under the influence of truth serum, spills his deepest, unfiltered thoughts. As Heather's terror peaks, she slams into a wall, damaging her Moby pack and flooding her system with chemicals, making things even worse. The scientists in the control room lose control of the experiment, and the situation becomes chaotic. In her panic, Heather harms herself, but the scientists can't intervene. Things have gone too far. Amid the madness, Abnesti drops his keys while rushing to help Verlaine. Jeff seizes the opportunity to unlock Abnesti's desk and dig for answers. What he finds shocks him. There is no committee. Abnesti has been running everything on his own. Jeff also discovers a list of substances and realizes most of the drugs have already been tested, with only numbers 40 and 6 left. Before he can explore further, Abnesti returns, forcing Jeff to hide the documents. That night, Abnesti and Verlaine cover up Heather's death. Verlaine is uneasy, but Abnesti pressures him into silence, warning that exposing the truth could shut down the entire facility. Reluctantly, Verlaine agrees. Later, Abnesti coldly tells Jeff that Heather didn't survive the experiment, claiming sacrifices like hers are necessary for the greater good. He urges Jeff to stay quiet so their work won't be wasted. To distract Jeff from the weight of what's just happened, Abnesti suggests trying some new supplements. They end up laughing uncontrollably, caught up in the strange moment. It's a brief, surreal reprieve in the middle of all the darkness. As the laughter subsides, Abnesti remarks that they're sitting together like old friends. But Jeff, fully aware of the twisted reality around him, reminds him, "Unlike you, I can't just leave." Abnesti, in a rare moment of honesty, responds, "Neither can I," admitting that his obsession with his work has consumed him completely. The next morning, Abnesti and Verlaine push forward with their cruel experiments, testing a new drug designed to trigger irrational fear. Lizzie is injected and, almost immediately, becomes terrified of a stapler. It's hard to understand why such a harmless object causes her so much panic. Later, Lizzie opens up to Jeff about her terrifying experience, and they bond over their shared struggles in the prison. They talk about the small privileges they've gained, like walking the corridor or using copper pots, but start questioning if it's worth the pain they're enduring. Curious, Lizzie asks Jeff why he's in prison. In a rare moment of honesty, Jeff reveals that he was convicted for drunk driving, a mistake that cost him his wife and best friend. The guilt still haunts him. Lizzie listens quietly, reflecting on Jeff's pain, and their connection deepens. Later, they share a kiss and find a brief escape escape from the chaos in each other's arms. But Abnesti is always watching. He notices a drawing of Lizzie on Jeff's desk. Realizing their feelings for each other have grown stronger, determined to control the situation, Abnesti injects himself with more N40 and proposes a twisted test. Jeff must inject Lizzie with the fear serum. For the first time, Jeff snaps, refusing to do it. Abnesti backs off, but warns that they'll revisit the issue tomorrow. That night, Abnesti tries to manipulate Jeff once again, but eventually lets him go. Later, when Verlaine arrives to refill Jeff's medication, Jeff seizes the opportunity to confront him. He reveals that he found Abnesti's files, which prove he's in charge of the experiments. Verlaine admits he once believed in Abnesti's vision, but now sees it for the monstrosity it's become. Together, they plan to take Abnesti down. The next morning, something feels off. Verlaine is missing, and Abnesti tells Jeff it's Lizzie's final dose. Torn between his loyalty to Lizzie and his growing sense of justice, Jeff approaches her. In a moment of clarity, he refuses to inject her. Abnesti, furious, reveals why Lizzie was imprisoned, but she remains calm, trusting Jeff completely. Jeff appears to inject Lizzie, but secretly alters the syringe to inject Abnesti with the fear serum instead. Abnesti realizes the betrayal too late, paralyzed by fear. Verlaine's sabotage is revealed. He tampered with Abnesti's container, adding B6, a drug that forces obedience. Jeff takes control, exposing the truth. B is the key to controlling people, making the other drugs irrelevant. Abnesti confesses that the experiments were never about the drugs. His real goal was to see if Jeff could be forced to harm someone he loves. His plan was to create a world of total obedience, all in the name of the greater good. Then, the shocking revelation. Jeff and Lizzie were released months ago, but Abnesti never told them. They've been living in a twisted version of reality, unaware that their freedom had already been granted. Determined to escape, Jeff forces open the prison gates and helps Lizzie break free. Abnesti, desperate to stop them, grabs a knife, but the effects of B prevent him from harming anyone he loves. In a final act of cruelty, Abnesti injects Lizzie with 4 doses of the fear serum and destroys the control phone, triggering chaos. A brutal fight ensues, but Jeff manages to save Lizzie, removing the drugs from her container and confessing his love. Meanwhile, Abnesti orders the inmates to capture Jeff and Lizzie, threatening them with the loss of their privileges. At first, the prisoners obey, but chaos quickly erupts. The inmates turn on each other, unable to keep control. With the prison in disarray, Abnesti tries to flee in his private plane, taking his research with him. Jeff and Lizzie escape by boat, watching as Abnesti's plane heads toward the mountains. But distracted by the sunset, Abnesti crashes into the mountains, his plans crashing down with him. Jeff and Lizzie sail away, finally free, ready to start a new life. But as they head into the unknown, one question lingers. Would you ever agree to participate in an experiment like this? Could similar substances already exist in the real world? Let us know what you think in the comments. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and we'll see you in the next video.